Brought to you by Charity Mobile, the phone company that supports life and family. 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite charity. Buy the way you believe at CharityMobile.com and use promo code TRADITION.
Much of the work of changing the church to the new synodal church, as the leaders of the Synod on Synodality have called it, and yes, they called it that, what the aim and goal of the Synod was, the new synodal church. Not my characterization, not a rad trad characterization, straight from the lips of the synodalists themselves. But much of that work involves remaking Catholic institutions while nobody is paying attention. It's the most insidious way of doing this, because most of the time, they're fairly honest with what they want to do. When people are paying attention, they will fully admit that they are trying to bring in a new church. And a new church suggests rather strongly that what they're doing is bringing in a new religion. They don't hide this. Again, they call it the new synodal church. They have said the methods of worship and the devotions that we had as Catholics that developed over time organically from the time of the apostles until Vatican II are not compatible with the new synodal church and its ecclesiology. Ecclesiology being the theological term for the theology of the church and its relationship and mission in the world. Alarming language. But much of this, to make this happen, isn't going to happen at these big committee meetings in Rome. Much of it happens behind the scenes. And much of it has to do with who gets appointed to various dicasteries, to various different offices in the Roman Curia, where they can then implement a synodal vision for whatever it is that person has been done and has been appointed to change. And you see this most recently with an appointment of a laywoman to be the governor of Vatican City, a first in the history of the church. This is a person who will govern the day-to-day operations of Vatican City. Think of them essentially as a mayor or a prime minister of the city who does things on behalf of the monarch, which is this case, the Roman pontiff. It's a first in the history. That's the highest profile one. But here's one that most people will never, ever hear about. And that is the case of a woman who has been appointed to run the dicastery that oversees Catholic higher education. You should understand, almost without me having to tell you this, what the implications are for someone who is going to try to change Catholic higher education. There's a dicastery, a relatively small one, or an office in Rome established by Benedict XVI, first started when he was Cardinal Ratzinger in the Holy Office, where he, as the head of the Congregation for the Dicastery of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith under John Paul II, he was in charge of reforming Catholic higher education, a process he took fairly seriously when he became Pope Benedict XVI himself. And in 2007, he created this office that's acronym is AVEPRO. This acronym isn't important here, but what it essentially does is this. It makes sure that Catholic education is Catholic. That's what it's supposed to be for. Francis has made a new appointment to this, and I'll have a link in my show notes at returntotradition.org I always put all my notes there anyway, but if you really want to read that document that established it, it'll be there. So you can understand what its role is in the church. But Francis made an appointment of a laywoman to lead this, and she has described herself as a critical friend of the church. And I'll explain what that actually means. We go to Gloria TV for this reassuring headline. Francis appoints anti-Catholic woman to Vatican agency. Now, it's worth noting, Gloria TV doesn't hide its bias. It puts it right up there, up front for you to hear. They don't sugarcoat it at all. And anybody who is trying to, under the guise of being a good Catholic, change the Catholic Church into the new synodal church, that's a proper characterization of them, anti-Catholic, because the Catholic faith, according to the synodalists, is not equipped to deal with the concerns of the modern world. They admit this. They don't hide it. We should start taking them at their word. So, here are the details of this reform, if you want to call it that, of the church from the article. Quote, Pope Francis appointed on March 21st the Belgian academic Benedicte Lemelian, who describes herself as a, quote, critical friend of the church. as a member of the Vatican agency AVEPRO. The body, created in 2007, is the Agency for the Evaluation and Promotion of Quality in Ecclesiastical Universities and Faculties, meaning Catholic universities and faculties. Miss Lemelian has been a professor of Old Testament since 2003 and dean of the theology department at KU Louvain since 2022. She sparked controversy during Francis's September visit to Belgium, when she joined academics in criticizing church teachings on matters of the flesh and the ordination of women. On September 28th, she told VaticanNews.va that the university's theology faculty had raised the James Martin flag during Francis's visit. Francis had already appointed her to the Pontifical Biblical Commission in 2021. End quote. Do you need more proof that Francis is at least sympathetic to the call for ordaining women? Whether he has time left or not to open the door for that more than already has happened, we shall see. But one of the key elements of the synod, of synodality, when it ended last fall, was having these committees that are meeting now, and they're going to give recommendations to Francis this summer, who is then going to give them to other groups to work with because he extended it till 2028. Unfortunately, synod without end. One of those key things that we're going to work on was the role of women in the church. Francis is leading the way by example, by appointing women to run these places. And one of them is for quality of education, being led by a woman who thinks the church got the issue of ordination wrong and has gotten the issue of the James Martin sin, that weird sin that James Martin has a weird interest in for a priest. That the church, she says, has gotten it wrong. That she protested, like a good Protestant, Francis's arrival in Belgium, to the point where at her Catholic university, she and the staff foisted that evil flag that James Martin and his type love so much. When they tell you who they are, believe them. And there is zero chance that Francis does not know who this person is. He has appointed her before, after all, to other things. And now she is getting a promotion. Every summer, without fail, for the past 4 years, Francis has handwritten in his own writing a letter, a personal letter in Spanish to James Martin. And he did so also last year, becoming pen pals with Sister Janine Gramick, the head of New Ways Ministry, organizations that fight for that sin to stop being called a sin, basically, and to be accepted by the church. He writes a letter every year to James Martin telling him that he's doing a great job and to keep it up in his own handwriting. James Martin posts these letters every summer. Francis never denies it. No one from the Vatican ever denies it. And you can compare the writing on those letters to other handwriting samples of Pope Francis and see that they very much come from him. When they tell you who they are, believe them. That's why you must pray for their souls, that they have an interior conversion before it is too late, and that God may liberate us from this through their conversion. Curious what you have to say about this, so let me know in the comments. Are you surprised that this is at least the second of these appointments we've had in just the last few months of someone who is going to fundamentally change the operations of the church in some way to fit the secular norms and values of the day? Does this surprise you? Let me know in the comments, please. And like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And if you've ever thought about supporting the work of Return to Tradition here on YouTube through Patreon, Subscribestar, or that join button, there are options in the description box below. All of them asked for by viewers like you. They do help keep these daily messages coming, and your support is greatly appreciated. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.